Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we are doing something a little different, and frankly, I am incredibly excited.
Me too.
Usually, we're tearing apart a stack of business articles, looking at the latest tech trends, or dissecting a nonfiction book to get to the juicy center.
Right.
But today we are looking at a story, a script, to be precise.
Mm-hmm.
But before you tune out thinking we're doing a high school book report, hold on, because this isn't just a story. This is the origin of a legend that everyone thinks they know, but almost nobody actually understands.
Absolutely. We are looking at a foundational text called the Pendragon Cycle Rise of the Merlin episode. And if you think you know the story of King Arthur, the sword, the stone, the round table, the shiny plate armor, you need to wipe that slate clean.
Completely clean.
This script doesn't give us the king. It barely gives us the wizard. What it gives us is the architecture of a legend. It shows us the mud, the blood, and the desperate politics that had to happen before a king could even be imagined.
That is such a good way to put it, the architecture. Because when we read through this transcript, what stood out to me wasn't the high fantasy elements, though they are there, and we will get to them. It was the setting. This is the Island of the Mighty, which is the ancient name for Britain, but it doesn't feel very mighty when we open the page. It feels broken.
Yeah.
It feels like a place that has been abandoned.
It is apocalyptic.
Yeah.
That's the only word for it. We are dealing with a world that is holding its breath before the end. The source material is a dramatic audio script, which means we get a lot of dialogue, sound cues, and atmospheric details that paint a picture of a fractured Britain.
Right, and it's not just one fracture.
No, not at all. We have three distinct worlds crashing into each other here. The native Celtic and Roman world, which is, crumbling.
Actively collapsing.
Then you have the incoming Christian influence, which is alien and confusing to the locals. And then, and this is the kicker, refugees from the Great Sea.
The Atlantean connection, which sounds wild when you say it out loud.
It does. It really does. But in this context, it grounds the myth in a very specific kind of tragedy. The Atlanteans aren't just magical beings. They are displaced people.
Survive.
Exactly. And this isn't just a side note. It's central to the DNA of the story. So our mission today is to unpack how the collision of these three cultures, the dying Rome, the rising church, and the lost Atlantis, sets the stage for what the text calls the Kingdom of Summer.
I love that phrase, Kingdom of Summer. It sounds so hopeful in a text that is otherwise pretty grim.
It's the light at the end of a very, very dark tunnel.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The source opens with a voice, a narrator, and right away I felt a chill. It sets the tone immediately.
It's a powerful opening. We assume this is Merlin, or the figure who will become Merlin, looking back from a point in the distant future. And he isn't just recounting history, he's confessing.
Yes, that's it. It feels like a confession.
He starts with a line that immediately grabs you by the throat.
He says they were going to kill Arthur. Can you imagine? They would have killed him too, but I put a stop.
Let's pause on that. I put a stop to it. Think about the agency there, the sheer arrogance.
It's incredibly possessive. It's not Arthur was saved by grace or Arthur was lucky. It's I did this.
Exactly. It immediately establishes the narrator not just as a storyteller, but as a manipulator, puppet master.
A chess player.
A cosmic chess player. He talks about listening to whispers in the wind and seeing faces in the embers of the fire. This is a man who deals in secrets, in foresight, in the things that other people ignore.
He's operating on a completely different level.
But then he drops the hammer. He says, I made it my affair to save him. And later, to understand Arthur, you have to understand the land, and you have to understand me, for I am the man who made him.
I am the man who made him. That is a massive claim. It implies that Arthur isn't just a biological accident or a gift from God.
No.
He's a construct. He is a project.
Precisely. And why do you need a project like Arthur? Why do you need to manufacture a savior? You only do that when the organic institutions of your society have completely failed.
Right. If the system works, you don't need a messiah. You just need a good manager.
But here, the narrator is telling us that the system is gone. And that brings us to the context of the collapse described in the source. This is post-Roman Britain.
The script gives us some historical breadcrumbs to place us in time. It mentions Maximus Magnus Maximus. That name rang a bell for me, but I had to look him up.
Right, the historical usurper. Just to give you and the listeners some context, in the late 4th century, Magnus Maximus took the Roman legions stationed in Britain, the troops that were keeping the peace and manning the walls.
The only thing keeping order.
And he marched them into Gaul, modern France, to seize the imperial throne. He wanted to be emperor, and he stripped Britain bare to do it. He left the back door wide open.
The narrator says, Maximus, withdrawing 2 legions from Gaul and sending troops back to the wall, but it's too little, too late.
Far too late, because then comes the crushing realization. A character delivers the line, the wall has fallen.
And that's a terrifying sentence for anyone living in that time. The wall, Hadrian's wall, wasn't just bricks and mortar, was it?
Oh, not at all. It was the psychological barrier between order and chaos.
Yeah.
It was the line that said, civilization is here, madness is there.
We are safe here, they are out there.
Exactly. If the wall has fallen, there are no rules left. The psychological safety net is gone. It means the empire isn't just sick, it's dead. It's a corpse that hasn't realized it yet.
And you can see that psychological break in how they talk about it. There's a specific line where a leader says something.
From today, we will no longer speak of Irish, Pict, or Saxon, but of barbarian tide.
Yes, that's it. Barbarian tide. What does that shift in language tell?
That linguistic shift is tragic and fascinating. It tells you everything you need to know about their mental state. When you are fighting a war you think you can win, you name your enemy.
Sure.
You say, we are fighting the Picts, or we are negotiating with the Saxons. It acknowledges them as people, as a nation with goals and leaders. But when you stop naming them and just call them the tide,
you're dehumanizing them. You're turning them into a natural disaster.
Exactly. You are dehumanizing them, but you are also admitting defeat. A tide is a force of nature. You can't negotiate with a tide.
You can't sign a peace treaty with the ocean.
You just drown. It signals a total collapse of diplomacy. It becomes an existential struggle, civilization versus nature. It implies that the sheer volume of enemy is so overwhelming that distinctions no longer matter.
It creates this sense of desperate finality. One of the leaders says, I had hoped for a few more years, one season, more or less. Everyone is just counting down the days. It's like waiting for the bomb to drop.
It is the definition of an apocalypse. The old order Rome is gone. The new order hasn't arrived. It is a time of twilight. And historically and narratively, twilight is the perfect breeding ground for miracles.
People are desperate for a sign.
Absolutely. When the politicians fail, people look to the mat, which leads us perfectly to the first major event of the sort, the miracle at the Salmon Weir.
This scene is so vivid. We are introduced to King Elphin, or as he is known to his subjects, Elphin the Unlucky.
Just imagine the weight of that. Just sit with that for a second.
Yeah, right? Being a king is hard enough. You have to deal with taxes, war, famine. But having the unlucky as your official title, it's like walking around with a kick me sign on your back, but for the entire universe.
It's worse than that. In Celtic tradition, the king and the land are one. This is a core concept.
Oh, right.
If the king is strong and just, the land is fertile, the catches are good. If the king is weak or unlucky, the crops fail, the cows get sick, the women are barren.
So Elphin isn't just having a bad streak at the casino.
No. His bad luck is an existential threat to his tribe. He's a walking curse. Every time a crop fails, his people look at him and think it's his fault.
And we see that anxiety play out in the ritual. Every year at the Salmon Weir, he gives the first take of the fish to a subject. It's supposed to be a show of generosity. Look, the gods provide, and I provide for you.
It's a redistribution ritual. It's meant to reinforce the social contract. But for Elphin, it's a yearly performance review from the universe. And he knows he's failing.
He's desperate.
He goes to the nets, hoping for a bounty, something to prove that the gods haven't abandoned him. He needs a win. He is desperate for just one good haul to shut everyone up.
And the dialogue here is so painful. He's telling his men, bring a bounty boy and show them the curse is broken. He's pleading with the water, and then the nets come up. Totally empty. Not a single fish. And his men, they are brutal. They aren't even surprised.
Not the slightest.
They're muttering, yeah, typical Elphin, the curse is real. They treat him with such resignation.
It confirms his identity as a failure in his own eye. The empty net is a symbol of his reign. He feels humiliated. It's the ultimate rejection by nature itself.
He's at rock bottom.
But then, amidst this humiliation, they spot something. A leather bag caught.
And Elphin, being the pest, probably thinks it's a dead ant or gardery. But they open it up.
And it's a baby.
But not just any baby. This is where the source material takes a hard left turn into the soup.
A very hard left turn.
This isn't a Moses in the basket's a baby cry. The baby Taliesin starts talking.
Immediately. Not just babbling, he's reciting poetry eloquently.
It is uncanny.
It's terrifying. One of the men says, the child is bewitched, throw him back in. Which, honestly, if I pulled a talking baby out of a river, that might be my first instinct too. It's creepy.
It's deeply unsettling.
It disrupts the natural order. Infants are supposed to be helpless. This child is fully conscious and articulate. In folklore, this is often the sign of a changeling or a divine being. It signals that the rules of reality are bent.
But look at Elphin's reaction. This is the moment that defines him. This is the moment he stops being the unlucky.
Yes.
He freezes. He looks at the child, and instead of fear, he names him. He says, behold Taliesin of the radiant brow.
Radiant brow. That is what the name Taliesin translates to. Elphin sees something in the child's face, a light and intelligence that overrides the horror of the situation.
He sees the miracle, not the monster.
He realizes that while he didn't catch fish, he caught something infinitely more valuable. He caught a story. He caught a future.
And the boy gives a prophecy right there in the weir. He says, a bard the boy will be, and in his voice will be born kingdom of summer.
There it is again, the kingdom of summer. We need to really unpack that phrase because it is the anchor of this entire deep dive. Contrast Kingdom of Summer with barbarian tide.
Oh, that's good.
The tide is cold, chaotic, destructive, wintry. The Kingdom of Summer is warm, ordered, fruitful, light.
Whoa.
Taliesin's declaring his mission statement before he can even walk. He is here to bring summer to the winter of Britain.
And look at the transformation in Elfin. A moment ago, he was humiliated. Now he's the foster father of a prophetic prodigy.
He's suddenly the luckiest man alive.
He declares, henceforth let no one say Elfin is unlucky.
The discovery of Taliesin breaks the cycle of despair. It's the first spark of hope in this collapsing world. It legitimizes Elfin's rule.
It changes everything for him.
He now possesses the greatest weapon in the land, not a sword, but a bard. And in Celtic culture, a bard who can speak truth to power, who knows the history and the prophecies, that is worth 1,000 spears.
A bard controls the narrative.
And Elfin just secured the best PR guy in history.
So we have Taliesin, this boy wonder. The story fast forwards. Taliesin grows up, presumably very quickly, or the narrative jumps, and becomes this figure of immense power and wisdom.
Right.
But he's not just sitting around writing poetry in a tower. He's stepping right into a spiritual wars. This brings us to section 3. The clash of faith.
This is one of the most interesting conflicts in the transcript because it isn't binary. It's not just pagans versus Christians where one side is good and one is bad.
No, it's much more nuanced.
You have the old ways, the Druidic tradition, and you have the new way, Christianity, arriving from Gaul. And Taliesin is caught right in the middle. And interestingly, he seems critical of both.
Let's talk about the old ways first. There's this scene where Taliesin meets an elder, possibly a druid leader, at a fallen standing stone. The imagery is strong. A massive stone that has toppled over. The druid wants Taliesin to use his power to lift it back. It's a test of loyalty, right?
It is a test of allegiance, but also a test of philosophy. The stone is marked for Cernunno, the horned lord.
Okay, Cernunno.
This represents the primal, ancient, perhaps darker nature gods of the island. The druid is essentially saying, restore the old order. Use your power to bring back the old gods.
Make Britain great again, basically.
In a sense, yes. He believes that if the symbols are restored, the power will return. It's a very concrete way of thinking about faith.
But Taliesin refuses, and he doesn't just say no. He asks a very poignant question. Why did it fall?
That is the key insight. The druid wants to prop up a dead tradition. He thinks if you just stand the stone back up, the magic returns.
But it's just a rock at that point.
Right. Taliesin wants to understand the cause of the collapse. He realizes that the stone fell because its time is over. The spiritual mandate of Cernunnos has expired. The earth itself has rejected it.
He mentions a great price. He says, my acceptance surely would have been my... What's that?
The source text implies that the power of Cernunnos requires a sacrifice, a submission that Taliesin isn't willing to give. The transaction.
Blood for blood.
Something like that. It's a dark path. Taliesin is looking for a different kind of connection to the divine. He sees the old ways as a trap, a way to be bound to the past.
So he rejects the reactionary path. He won't go back. Then almost immediately he runs into the Christians.
The other.
Elfin and Taliesin meet from Gaul, who are followers of Brother Martin. And you'd think maybe this is the answer. But Taliesin is skeptical.
And the interaction is hilarious and telling. The priests are looking for a holy place where the true God was worshipped. They're projecting their own geography of faith onto a landscape that doesn't fit it.
They're completely culturally deaf.
Totally. They come in with all these assumptions.
The dialogue here is great. The priests mention Holy Mary. And Taliesin, being genuinely curious and trying to relate, asks, is she a goddess?
A perfectly reasonable question for a Celt. If you hear about a powerful spiritual woman who is prayed, you assume she fits into the pantheon as a god.
Of course. He's trying to categorize this new information using his existing framework.
But the priests freak out. They cry, blasphemy.
Yeah.
They can't handle the category error. They don't see his curiosity. They see heresy.
They just see a pagan who needs correct.
It highlights the friction. To the priests, they are bringing the truth to a pagan dark. They see everything local as demonic or confused. To the locals, like Taliesin, this new god seems strange, seems abstract.
A little weak, maybe.
Well, Taliesin challenges them on their God of truth and love. He says, a strange God, and often disappointed, I should think.
That line is pure gold, often disappointing.
It reveals Taliesin's cynicism, or perhaps his realism. He looks at the world, a world of slaughter, betrayal, and collapse, and finds it hard to believe in a God of love who is actually in charge.
He thinks such a God must be constantly heartbroken by humanity.
It's a very sophisticated theological critique from a supposed barbarian.
It shows that Taliesin isn't sold on the Christian dogma immediately, just as he wasn't sold on the Druidic dogma. He is standing apart, synthesizing, waiting for a truth that actually fits the reality.
He represents a bridge.
He's not fully old way, not fully new way. He is something else. He's looking for a third option.
And while this spiritual tug of war is happening, a third player enters the game, and this is the wildest part of the source.
This is where it goes from historical fiction to something else.
We have the arrival of the refugees.
The Atlanteans? Though, do they call themselves Atlanteans?
The text drops enough clues to make it undeniable. They're referred to as the fair folk, or people from the glass isle. But the backstories, they are survivors of a great sea that swallowed their homeland.
Let's talk about that entrance. The priests and the Britons go to ask King Avallac'h for permission to build a church. And the description of Avallac'h's people is, well, it's steeped in rumor.
Totally.
The locals think they're fairy. They say they change shape, never sleep, and travel on the wind.
That's the peasant view. It's how the barbarian Britons rationalize a civilization that is technologically or culturally superior to their own.
Right. When you encounter a people who are taller, longer lived, or more sophisticated, you mythologize them.
You call them elves. You invent stories to explain why they seem better than you. But when we actually meet them, Avallac'h and his daughter Charis, they aren't fairy, they are refugees.
That distinction is so important. They aren't magical sprites frolicking in the woods. They are traumatized.
Deeply traumatized.
There's a line where it's revealed that Charis was instrumental in their escape. King Avallac'h says, "Not an Atlantean draws breath that doesn't owe their life to my daughter."
It implies a great sea, right? Imagine the psychology of they are the survivors of the ultimate climate catastrophe. They watch their entire civilization, their golden towers, their libraries, their history, their family sink beneath the waves.
And
now they are living in muddy huts in Britain, surrounded by people they consider savage.
It puts Avallac'h's attitude in a totally different light. He is so arrogant about it. He looks down on Elfin. He looks down on everyone.
He has this incredible air of condescension.
He says, "I will not give my daughter to a barbarian." He treats them like dirt.
He is clinging to his status. It's a defense mechanism. If he admits he's just another refugee living in a swamp, he loses his identity. He loses the last thread of Atlantis.
It's all he has left.
So he maintains this air of regal superiority. We are the kings of Atlantis, even if Atlantis is gone. His arrogance is a shield against his greed.
And Charis, she is the embodiment of that. She is cold, distrustful. She says, desperate men can never be trusted.
She is projecting. She is desperate. She knows what people do when they're desperate because she saw her own people panic and die.
She's seen the worst of it.
She is living in a state of hypervigilance. She has PTSD. She's watching the barbarian tide rise in Britain and thinking, here we go again, another apocalypse.
Yeah.
She's waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So we have these three strands. The desperate Britons, led by unlucky Elfin, the zealous Christians who don't understand the land, and the arrogant, traumatized Atlanteans who hate their new home.
It's a powder keg.
How do you bridge that gap? It feels impossible. But according to the source, you do it with a song.
Ah, yes. The feast scene. This is where Taliesin's power really manifests. It's not a lightning bolt. It's art. It's the power of the bard.
Elfin, being the proud dad, boasts about Taliesin, and they ask him to sing.
Right. They kind of put him on the spot.
He sings the lament of Pwyll, Prince of Anne, and the description of the reaction is powerful. It stops everyone in their tracks. It silences the room.
This is the music captured them. It bridged the gap. Even the Atlantean, who looked down on these people as dirty savages, were moved.
Even Avallac'h.
He says, when he sings, I forget the pain of our loss. That is the utility of the bard in this culture. It's not entertainment, it's therapy. It's binding the community together through shared emotion.
It reminds them of their shared humanity or shared sentience. It breaks through Charis's icy exterior, too.
For a moment, at least.
It forces them to realize that grief is universal. The Atlanteans lost their home. The Britons are losing their home. The song unites them in that loss.
Exactly. Taliesin essentially creates a shared emotional space where they can exist together without hierarchy. For a few minutes, there are no barbarians and no fair folk. There are just people who hurt.
But not everyone is happy about this unity.
No.
We have to introduce the villain, or the shadow, Morgan.
Morgan. She appears to be Charis's sister, or at least a close kin, but she represents the dark mirror of Atlantean power.
While Charis is trying to survive by holding back, Morgan is trying to dominate.
Morgan is fascinating because she represents the might makes right philosophy. She is a survivor who has decided that the only way to never be hurt again is to be the one doing the hurting.
There's a scene where Morgan is communing with a bull god. Is this the same horned lord the druid mentioned?
It seems to be a variation of it. Cernonos, the bull god. It represents raw, sacrificial power. But notice how Morgan interacts with it. She isn't reverent. She's transactional.
She's making a deal.
Just making a deal. And she mocks Charis. She says, true power is killing what you love, not letting it kill you.
That line gave me chills. True power is killing what you love. It's the ultimate nihilistic philosophy. It's so predatory.
It's the philosophy of the cornered animal that has decided to become the wolf. Morgan argues that to survive in a harsh world, you must become harder than the world. You must be willing to sacrifice anything, your family, your morals, your love, to seize control.
And she sees Charis's compassion as a fatal flaw.
A deadly one. And Charis contrasts this. She says, I've never spilled blood for power. Perhaps that's why I failed.
Listen to the guilt in that.
It's immense. She wonders if being ruthless would have saved more of her people. It's a terrible burden. She chose the light path, refusing the bull god's offer, but it left her feeling powerless.
But she feels like a failure.
She thinks her morality is a weakness. She says, damn us both, regarding herself and Taliesin, because they both rejected the dark, easy power. She believes that by being good, they have doomed themselves to be victims.
So you have these two characters, Taliesin and Charis, who are both incredibly powerful, but have both voluntarily restricted that power because they have a conscience. That's their connection.
Exactly. And that sets up the romance. But calling it a romance almost feels too small. It's a convergence of souls.
It's a strategic alliance, almost.
It's a meeting of the only two adults in the room, cosmically.
Let's talk about that convergence. Section 6, the romance of two worlds. It starts with a classic trope, the bathing scene.
Right.
Taliesin finds Charis bathing in a lake, but instead of it being, gratuitous, it turns into a heavy philosophical debate.
Right. Charis is defensive. She accuses him of spying. She puts her armor back on, metaphorically. But Taliesin cuts right through it.
He does not play her game.
Not at all. He says, I didn't mean to intrude into your thoughts.
Yeah.
You intruded into my soul. He reveals that he has the sight, just like she does.
They recognize each other. They are both seers, and they bond over that shared rejection of the dark god.
That's the core of it. Taliesin says, I know what the bull god offers. Same choice.
It's a bond of shared trauma and shared integrity. They're the only two people in the room who understand what it costs to be good in a world that rewards evil.
They could have been God, essentially, if they had sold their souls to the bull god, but they chose to remain human, and they're both kind of miserable about it.
There's a really human moment, though. Amidst all this heavy talk, Charis leaves her boots behind at the lake.
I love this detail.
And Taliesin brings them back to her, and she says, a true prince would have returned. It's a bit of flirt.
It reminds us that amidst all this prophecy and doom, they are a young man and a young woman. It breaks down her defense mechanism.
It's a small act of kindness.
It's a gesture of service, not dominant. He isn't trying to conquer her, he's serving.
And then Taliesin tells her a story, the story of the woman from across the sea.
A story within a story. He tells of a woman who died of loneliness because she missed her home. And Charis, she realizes he is talking about her potential fate. She says neither pain nor pleasure ever. She is resigned to a kind of emotional death.
She's given up.
She thinks her life is over because Atlantis is gone. She is just a ghost haunting a foreign land. She's waiting to fade away.
But Taliesin refuses to accept that. This is the turning point of the episode. He rejects her knife.
He absolutely does. He proposes a new work.
A new project.
He says, there is a new work in the world. I've seen the land shining with goodness. It's the kingdom of summer. This is the core thesis of the show. He isn't just asking her to marry him. He is asking her to help him build a new civilization. He's offering her a job.
He's saying, your old home is gone. My old world is crumbling. Let's build something new there.
Precisely. The kingdom of summer isn't a place you find on a map. It's a place you create.
Yeah.
And you create it by merging the best of the old world Taliesin's bardic wisdom, the connection to the land, and the best of the Atlantean world Charis's knowledge, her endurance, her sight.
It is a synthesis.
A necessary one.
And he proposes. Despite Avalak saying, I won't give her to a barbarian, Taliesin asks Charis directly, marry me, Charis.
And in that proposal, the legend is sealed. Because we know, even if the episode ends there, that their union is what eventually produces the lineage of Arthur.
Right. This is the beginning of everything.
Arthur isn't just a Briton king. In this version of the story, he is the child of the earth, Taliesin, and the sea, Charis.
It's a genetic and spiritual merger. It explains why Arthur is always seen as this other figure, this bridge between worlds.
And why he is the once and future king. He is the product of the collapse of the past and the hope for the future. He is the synthesis that can only happen when two dying worlds collide to make a living one.
So we've covered the collapse, the miracle baby, the religious war, the refugees, and the romance. Now let's zoom out. What does this all mean for us? Why tell the story this way?
I think the so what here is about the definition of hope. The source material presents a world that is objectively ending.
No question.
The wall has fallen. The barbarians are here. The golden age of Atlantis is drowned. By all rights, everyone should be cynical, like Morgan.
Right. Morgan's path, grab what you can, kill what you love, makes sense in a survival logic.
It is the logical response to collapse. But Taliesin and Charis choose the illogical. They choose to believe in a kingdom of summer that doesn't exist yet.
They choose hope.
They choose to build a future based on virtue and song and connection rather than blood and iron.
It redefines power. The Druid thought power was the stone. Morgan thought power was Taliesin shows that power is voice.
Yes.
It's the ability to speak a new reality. In his voice will be born a kingdom.
And that's a powerful takeaway for any listener. When the structures around you are crumbling, when the wall falls, the most powerful thing you can do is articulate a vision of something better.
It's not just about resisting.
It's about creating. You don't just fight the darkness, you sing the light. You tell a better story than the one the world is telling.
That is actually really profound. It makes me look at the Arthur legend totally differently. It's not about a guy who pulled a sword. It's about the desperate, beautiful struggle to create order out of chaos through storytelling.
And the cost of that struggle.
Yeah.
Charis has to give up her grief. Taliesin has to give up his safety. They both have to defy their elders. It's a revolutionary act.
Okay, I want to leave the listeners with a final thought, something to chew on. We started with the narrator saying he saved Arthur, but looking at all this, the manipulation, the prophecies, the arranged marriages, essentially, it makes you wonder.
Indeed.
Is Arthur a person, or is he a project? Is he the result of a bloodline, or is he the result of an idea? And if he is an idea, the idea of the Kingdom of Summer, can that idea ever, or does it just wait for the next Taliesin to sing it?
That is the question. And perhaps that is why the narrator is still whispering in the wind, the story isn't over.
Yeah.
As long as we need the Kingdom of Summer, the story.
We will leave it there. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us into the island of the mighty. It's been a journey.
Keep listening and keep looking for the summer.
See you next time.